Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the SIG Podcast, Recruits Draftcast. Today, we got another packed show. We have head coach of St. Andrews College, David Manning, joining us in just an instant. We're also going to be talking about the recent developments in the NHL draft for the 2024 draft. As always, we're going to be touching on our Habs prospect of the week, sleeper of the week, and prospect of the week. So let's get started.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to the SIG Podcast. Recruits Draftcast.
And with the first overall selection in the 2023 NHL Draft, the Chicago Blackhawks are very proud to select from the Regina Pats, the Western Hockey League, Connor Bedard.
The sickest NHL draft and scouting podcast. It's gonna be sick.
All right, you know the drill. I'm your host, producer Shayne, joined by the fantastic Grant McCagg. Grant, we feeling any better this week?
Yeah. I'm not magnificent anymore. I'm fantastic. Well, that works.
I got to change it up sometimes, you know.
Yeah, no, I'm glad you did. I was getting tired, Geez, am I only magnificent? I'm nothing else, or what? So yeah, fantastic works. I'm feeling fantastic. It took 18 days to get rid of this cold. Longest I think I've ever had a cold, but last couple days haven't been blowing my nose, and I think we're over the hump.
Well, glad to have you in full form here.
Yeah.
And let's bring him in. Head coach of St. Andrews College, David Manning. Thank you for joining us, David, taking the time to chat with us. How you doing?
I'm doing great, thank you. I'm magnificent too, I guess.
Yes, you are. Yes, you are.
So,
You are magnificent and fantastic.
I appreciate it.
That's awesome.
Appreciate
That's
you
awesome.
having me on today.
Yes, sir. Grant, I know you are foaming at the mouth. You have so many questions for David, so
Yeah,
I'll leave the floor to
definitely.
you. Take it away.
Yeah.
So should we call you professor since it's St. Andrews College, or what?
I'll leave that one to Datsuk. He can have that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm just curious, you got 15, 16, 17-year-old kids or whatever, they call it college, but is it really college? Like, can you explain what?
Yeah, I think that's a remnant from the establishment of the school, and a lot of schools similar to St. Andrews in Canada.
Sure.
I think, when the school was established in 1899, public education wasn't really a widespread thing in Canada.
Okay.
So these colleges became places for probably the well-to-do people to educate their children, and over time, the high school system obviously develops in the rest of Canada, and so the name is stuck. But we are a high school. We're actually a school that goes from grade 5 to grade 12, all boys, just north of Toronto and in Aurora, and we get that a lot. I mean, dealing with some of the American schools that we play against, and just trying to make connections and introduce ourselves and say college. I always, when I correspond the first time, I always have to put high school in brackets and make sure that people understand, it isn't your traditional college in the age sense.
Perfect. Now, just curious, what for a kid that enrolls, Dean, how long has he been? Like you say, you go 5 to 12. So how long has he been with your school? Dean.
So Dean Letourneau is from just outside Ottawa, and so
prior.
Yeah, there you go. And so he entered the school in grade 11, which is I would say a normal entrance year for some students. The other obviously normal entrance years are grade 9 at the start of high school, and then throughout our middle school, what we call our lower school, the middle school, the class size grows progressively from grade 5, 6, 7, and 8. So Dean comes to the school. I think the trend has been in Canada that not many families are willing to send their boys away when they're 14, 13 years old in grade 9. That old traditional idea is not the same, and so now you see more boys who, whether or not they're hockey players or musicians or computer scientists or whatever they are, I think parents are more willing to set them up for a 2-year experience at our school. They board, they kind of build some skills, some independence, and prepare themselves for university and what's ahead of them.
Now, this past weekend, you had Shattuck St. Mary's in town for 2 games, Friday night and Saturday noon. it was a quick turnover. But
Yeah.
every scout I know was that's in the NHL was there. Must have been packed with scouts. What? How many scouts you figure were there on the weekend?
Yeah, it's tough to say. It was definitely a Black Jacket convention here. I think our league, the Prep Hockey Conference, allows us to kind of get these teams together throughout the winter, which is amazing. And that establishment of that league, I mean, we've played Shattuck traditionally for a number of years, but having the league and having the games count in standings and have competition for them has been really great. But in September when we release our schedule, or during the summer, whenever it may be, that one gets circled for the scouting community, just because there's always a handful of guys on the Shattuck team, and I think it allows the Ontario-based scouts or the Quebec-based scouts, the closer ones, to get a chance to see that team that they may not see a ton. So definitely that weekend is definitely one that over the years, whether it's in December or January, February, depending on where it falls, is one that's always well attended. I mean, I'd be shocked if not all 32 teams are represented. I know Central Scouting was there with a number of their staff. So great opportunity for our players and for Shattuck's players to showcase themselves. And I think it was a great, the two games were a great endorsement for, what we do as a league and the talent on the ice.
And I mean, Dean is the most coveted prospect, obviously. 6'7" center with pretty silky mitts for a big kid. He reminds me a little bit of Logan Brown. Do you see that comparison as being?
That and I mean, I know Tage Thompson isn't a center, but a similar kind of comparison, like where they can operate in traffic. Dean's ability. I mean, I always said last year, when he first came in and started to work with him, like he's almost plays like he's 5'6", but he's 6'6", and so he's grown up. With a great ability to handle the puck and play offense in front of people, whereas most big players tend to play their offense, with their defenders behind them and kind of overpower and use their reach to kind of create separation. Dean is very comfortable putting pucks in front of him, putting it through sticks, putting it through skates, and so he has some abilities in terms of being able to get pucks into his own feet. That usually small players kind of possess. So he's an interesting combination of skill and size, and I think once he's able to unlock playing big, I mean, that's the crazy part. He doesn't really play his size right now, and he does to a degree in moments and in flashes, and I guess that's probably what gets everyone really excited. But once he's able to unlock the other part of his game, just based on his size, we got a pretty intriguing player, I think.
Yeah, I spoke. I texted a couple of scouts this morning, and then both of them asked me to ask you. His competitiveness and work ethic, I guess, are the two things that scouts would like to see. I mean, invariably, a big kid, you want to see them play with a bit of jam, right? And maybe a little more consistent with that. Is that probably the thing that he needs to work on the most at this point?
Yeah, I'm not sure work ethic is probably the right term for it. I would say, I mean, he's very dedicated in his game. He works his tail off. He puts in a lot of time on his own with our skills coach. I mean, he's developed parts of his game that he didn't have a year ago because he's put in the time. I think he wants to have an impact offensively, and I think he's learning how the physical part and his presence physically impacts the game as well. So I think in saying, he doesn't play big all the time, I think that kind of is what they're hitting at, is like they want to see him be imposing. They want to see him be physical. They want to see him be mean. They want to see him, be 6'7", and he's not always that. And that's part of, like any young player, I think that he's learning those things as he goes. And yeah, obviously when somebody's 6'7", has good puck control, great coordination, can skate, I think they're going to have to find some area. But I think that competitiveness is there. I think it's getting more consistent. I think a lot of it is him just realizing his own identity and who he is as a player. But it's not for, I think a lot of it is he frames his play and his impact as purely offensive and what he can do on the score sheet. And that's quite significant, obviously, right now. And that will continue to be. But, I think most young players, I say, most of the ones that I've dealt with, they mature into understanding that there's a lot of nuance to the game and there's a lot of ways to impact the game other than just the score sheet. So I think he's understanding that. I think as he grows and gets a clearer picture of his identity, that will become probably a non-issue for him. But he, in terms of work rate and effort, I mean, he puts a lot of time in. He wants to be a player. He's very coachable. So, I don't see those things being issues moving forward personally.
David, just out of curiosity, just want to slide one in here. Are you aware if his growth plates are still open? Because I mean, that the 6'7" at that age is wild, and to know that he could still keep growing is crazy to think about.
Yeah, I wouldn't trust my medical opinion on very much. I mean, his brothers are big guys too. His parents are big. I mean, it's tough to say. I mean, he's grown, I think, 3 inches in his time here. He came to us last year as 6'4" and measured in September at 6'7". So I would, he's taller than his dad and he's taller than his brother. So I would assume that he's probably close to being done. And he's light for his height. I mean, at this stage, like he's still not completely filled out. So I think a lot of that is part of it too. Like he's got big levers and so, he's got to learn how to play lower and play stronger through his core, and those things will come as he gets more and more confident. But he puts the time in the gym. He's very athletic, very explosive. So, I would assume that he's probably done growing, but he's been a bit of a freak of nature so far. So who knows?
Yeah.
No, he's really intriguing, and I do have him in the first round. In fact, I have him top 20 or thereabouts. That's probably higher than most, just because, and NHL scouts I talk to are it's hard to project a player that's playing AAA, hockey level sometimes. And they wonder if one of them was asking me to ask you if he considered playing at a higher level this year, with it being his draft year, and because of those question marks, maybe ultimately hurting where he gets drafted if he goes as high as maybe he should. Not that it matters, it's not where you get drafted, it's what you do after you get drafted, right? So were there discussions that he play just like Del Elche and Pridham maybe go to the BCHL this year? Was that a topic of discussion with the family and with Dean?
Yeah, I think, every program in North America would like to have Dean Letourneau. Other than, Owen Sound owns his rights in the OHL, and so they would like to have him there too. Sure. I think it speaks to, our program. I think Dean is happy here. He's had, his team, he had 2 teammates last year who were drafted. Third that, was probably should have been and wasn't, and probably will be this year. But I think he saw those guys go through the process. I think it's probably speaks to Dean's, self, image in terms of, he knew he could get drafted in terms of being here. That's been proven now over the last 7 years straight for us. So I think he's happy here. Our school community is very supportive. He's got all the resources he needs to improve and develop as a player. He's being pushed on the ice. It's not easy for him. He's got to work to get it done. He's obviously having lots of success, but he wanted to graduate. He wanted to be here. He knew his support. He's happy. His living situation, all of those pieces of the puzzle. I use that term a lot. We got a really great thing going here, and we got a lot of balance in these kids' lives. And I think that part of it, he could have played at the junior A level in terms of the USHL probably, or Owen Sound if he chose. But I think that's probably ties into why he chose the college route to begin with. I think he wanted that. He wanted that duality of his of what he's doing, on the ice and in the classroom and socially. So I think I take that with a lot of pride to know that a player like that wants to return, wants to be a captain, wants to be a leader, wants to grow through it and have success here. And I think at the end of the day, I think he realizes that this is a long path, and that's kind of why he chose the route he did. And so, it's probably more important what he's going to be doing at 23 than what it is when he's 18.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It shows a certain amount of maturity,
Sure.
It's not all, it really doesn't matter where you get drafted. It's what you do after, I tell that to kids all the time. They're maybe a little disappointed about where they went in the draft, and it's a marathon, not a sprint. But last year, a lot of the kids that could have played at the U18s for Canada were still in the playoffs.
Yeah.
Your season's done by the time the U18s come around.
We've had players play. Well, one player, Matthew Morden, who's now playing for Harvard, Arizona Coyotes draft pick.
Yes.
He played in the U18. I guess it was 2 or 3 years ago. Yeah.
Was there any discussion or thought that maybe Castagna last year? I was looking at the roster, and he could probably you could arguably say that he could have played in that.
I think he could have for sure. I'll be disappointed if Dean's not strongly considered this year.
Well, that was my follow-up question.
Yeah, you're welcome. I think these have been it's tough. I understand why scouts, evaluators, Hockey Canada, whomever else maybe have a hard time sometimes kind of pegging where our guys are at.
Big jump for them, I guess.
It is. I think at the end of the day, they're playing the same game, and they'll adjust. And I think if a player is, using Jonathan Castagna, I think he has enough of this, periphery traits that I think he would have been fine anywhere in their lineup, and proved it when he went to the combine, and I think he's proven it with his start in college hockey and so far this year. So I hope Dean gets enough attention that enough NHL scouts are writing emails or having conversations with the brass at Hockey Canada to give Dean a consideration. But I find it hard to understand, it'll be hard to understand when the time comes if he's not selected, considering the season he'll put in, the promise that he shows. Is probably a player you want to get into the mix, I would say.
Well, maybe they probably want a bigger team. They think that he won't be big enough.
No. They don't have big enough jerseys for him.
What's you've been speaking with scouts, I'm sure, and what's the feeling, the buzz right now of where Dean is slotted for the draft?
Yeah, I think it's that they always kind of keep their cards close to their chest, and every scout, doesn't necessarily speak for their organization. But I would say, from my standpoint, from historically, from dealing with other players and the buzz and the amount of interviews and the conversations and requests for X, Y, and Z, I would say I would have to think he's in the 20 to 50 range, and if he goes in the first, you're kind of not that surprised, depending on the team and where he lands. And if he ends up just outside of that, you're probably not surprised either. So that's probably the range, and that may evolve and change as the weeks and months pass. But I think that's kind of where. And again, I think going back to talking about Dean's makeup and his work ethic and things like that, he didn't come into this season as that, right? I think he came into this season as a player that people knew about, and he's just hit the ground running. He's obviously put a lot of time in last spring, over the summer, and he's hit the ground running and has improved his game to get to the point where he's even in this discussion to have that. So that's credit to him. That's credit to the work he's put in and his coachability and dedication.
Well, I'll tell you, last year, and I mean, I know some scouts from the Ottawa Valley too, so they knew about him, but I'd ask him about Castagna. I said, yeah, but Letourneau's the guy. Look out for him. He's,
for sure.
They were on him last year, believe me.
I know they watch. I'm not sure any of them would have said he'd be first round material last year.
Yeah, they did.
Okay.
They did privately, anyways. So
Good.
yeah, he was very highly thought of, and I mean, obviously, you want to see them make the next step and stuff. But if he does go to the U18 and he does well, I think he'll be a lock for the first round. Like that's why I hope he does get selected, just so, because it was similar with McCagg. Like right up until, I mean, you saw how good he was, but scouts were still concerned that that level, that jump that can he play that well against better competition? Well, then he went to the World Junior Challenge and just awed everybody. And if he hadn't been in that, he doesn't go in the top 5 of the draft, and then somebody steals him, right? So I hope he gets picked. And I thought that Castagna should have played last year too. As you say, like, his style of play and everything, it's like there was no reason I didn't think that he should be playing. But anyway, I think the only thing is that they wonder about the jump up, but a player's a player, as you said, so eloquently said. Speaking of which, there's been a couple of kids that you had on the team last year that went to the BCHL. You mentioned him earlier, but Francesco Del Elci, I saw him at Shayne and I saw him at the development camp, and we were, and you got word back that just how impressive he was there but his edges, like when he stops, the spray, when certain kids, the spray goes up about 10 feet. He's one of those kids that just edge work is just amazing. His foot work is just amazing.
Special skater. I mean, that's his number one attribute, and very elusive, and actually just thrives having somebody in his hip pocket and wants a defender chasing him so he can lose him, and it becomes a cat and mouse game with him, to be honest with you. And so, I mean, he graduated last year along with Jack Bridham, who I'm sure we'll chat about, and I mean, I thought right up until the draft that Francesco would be taken. Wasn't. I just think he's only scratching the surface as well, in terms of, like, he's a tall and kind of, not tall, but he's 6'1", 6'2". Like, he's not nearly filled out. He's got a long runway ahead of him, and I just think when you can skate like he can, I think it's a pretty low risk play once that guy just gets bigger, gets stronger, learns how to defend consistently, and I think that hopefully he's doing enough this year. And I know at the camp, Montreal was really happy with him compared to some of their draft picks and whatnot. So, hopefully they're able to, if it's them or somebody else, who knows? I just, I think that he's got 4 years ahead of him at UMass, and he's got a great coach and Coach Carville to teach him the nuance and the detail of the defensive side of the game against that level of competition. And it'll be a battle for him. Like, that part of the game he's definitely an offensive puck-moving defenseman. That's what he wants to do, and so he's got to continue to find his identity as a defender. But I think he's, again, another kid, puts a lot of time in, puts a lot of work in, is very coachable, and I have no reason to believe that he's not going to get there.
So he's above 6 feet tall now?
I would say, he's at least 6'1", I would say, for sure.
Oh, really, eh?
Yeah.
I mean, you hate to. Well, I'll say it. I mean, he reminds me a little bit of McCagg. Like, he's that type of with the puck, like the jukes he makes and stuff.
For sure.
A poor man's McCagg.
He's, like I said, he's very elusive and makes people miss, so he's refined it to the point where, like, sometimes early in his time with us in grade 11, he would get himself into trouble, and a lot of, I mean, his escape trap is always using his feet to kind of solve the problem, and so he learned throughout his 2 years to kind of simplify things when they needed to be simplified, and complicate things when he could complicate them, and I think that's an ongoing, for a young defenseman, that's an ongoing process. And I think, like I said, the next step for him is now just becoming taking that footwork and that skating and turning it into the ability to defend consistently, wanting to defend consistently.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think he's top 10 in scoring in the BCHL as a rookie defenseman. People that were wondering whether he could play at the junior level, I've got that answer. So I'd be shocked if he doesn't get picked, and I wouldn't even surprise me if it's mid rounds, because I have him there now. And like you say, the defending, well, you can teach that to a certain degree. You can't teach his feet, at
this stage, much tougher for sure.
His natural skill ability is something. It's easier to teach the defending than it is that's for sure. So I really hope he gets picked. And Jack, going into the year, the scouts that I deal with really were he was another guy that they thought might be considered to be a first rounder. Kind of an all-around game, good size. He's gone to the BCHL, and he's not putting up the stats yet anyways that we probably expect from a kid that would be considered for the first round. I don't know if you've been talking to him or not and getting feedback or watched any of his games, but just give me your impressions with his season so far.
Yeah, I think he got off to a really good start, and his numbers have kind of waned a little bit. I think the big adjustment for Jack, and highly skilled, talented kid, another great skater, grew. I think he grew 5 or 6 inches in his time with us, and so again, another kid who puts a lot of time in, a lot of work, worked individually with our skills coach a ton, and so Jack, I think, is going to go through that process of building the complete player, and the complete player having the details on all sides of the puck, and then his offensive game. I mean, he possesses an outstanding shot, great one-timer. Can find his spot off the rush and while he's skating, and the next step for him as an offensive player now is to get inside a little bit more and create offense inside the dots consistently, and I think that's the process he's going through, and he's a smart enough player. He's an adaptable enough player, I think, to work through that. I think his numbers have dipped a little bit, but I'm sure he's happy. He's working through the process of becoming a complete player, and that's and I think having been around the game a lot, his dad is assistant GM of the Leafs, and so he knows the game, and he knows what it's going to take, and he understands that he's got to add building blocks and layers to his foundation that he has now. And I can't say enough about how much, he's worked and how coachable he's been to continue to make those adjustments. So I'm happy to see, to be honest with you, it's good for him to go through these struggles because, he's got to be able to push through on the other side. And he's done it before. And I hope that he's able to push through and do it again.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of season left. He grew 5 or 6 inches. Dean grew 3.
Yeah.
What do you feed these guys? A lot of Brussels sprouts or what?
HGH.
Yeah.
That's such a joke. That's such a joke. But no, I think we're getting these guys that just, there's a lot going on, I think, and with their bodies and where we get them. And none of our guys have been, the guys who've, Warren Fogle, same idea. Like that kid sprouted up when he was here. Morgan Barron was a little bit bigger, but he still grew. Like the Matthew Steinberg, they all kind of came into their own. None of the guys who've come here who've gone on and got drafted, and even Jonathan, right? Like Jonathan Castagna, kind of came into his own from year 1 to year 2. And none of them were blue chippers. Dean's a 9th round pick of the OHL draft. Like none of these guys have been pegged at a young age. Like these are all guys who've had to kind of work and get in this environment and function and do all the things they need to do to get to this stage. And so I think that speaks a lot of kind of the trajectory that they're on, and hopefully of the environment that we've been able to create for these players and give them a platform to do those things. Because not that it's easy to help, some of these blue chippers kind of push on through the next level, but I think it says a lot that these guys are in the stages that they're in, and they're able to kind of just continue to add and get to a point where, I'm not sure anyone would have saw that the fact that Dean Letourneau would be considered as a first rounder, in the spring of his OHL draft year. And so, so I think it's great, and we take a lot of pride in helping these amazing players do these things.
So, like, you obviously have a good recruiting staff too. How is it? Is it more like, are there a lot of cuts, and what's the?
Yeah, we're an all boys school, so we've got a school full of hockey players, and we have U12, U14, we have a couple U16 teams, and then 2 U18 teams. One of them being mine at the prep level, and
right.
So yeah, we've become a bit of a magnet for hockey players in this region. And then we've, through the competition level that we play with the Shaddocks and the Culvers and the Northwoods and the league that we're in, the prep hockey conference, and then the rest of our schedule gets filled out with junior games and some other things locally here in Ontario. We've been able to I think we know the level we need to be at, and so we put the roster together with that in mind, knowing that we want to be at a certain competitive level each year. So we'll end up having to find players from outside of the school community to kind of fill the roster and be where we want to be, and so that balance falls to me, and there's not much, to be honest with you. There's not much of a recruiting staff. It's kind of myself, and
okay.
And I think through the years you build relationships and you do as best you can to find the right kids. I mean, we're smack dab in the GTA with 50 AAA U16 teams that all these players have aspirations and dreams, and so and for a lot of kids we've become a really good solution to kind of their hockey path in this local area. And I'm from Newfoundland originally, so we've tended to have some Atlantic Canadians over the years, which has been important to me, and so those connections, and some of those boys like Steinberg and Barron and Luke St. Clair currently, and so some other boys that we've had come through, and so those kids just add to the dynamic of the group and make it a really high functioning group of people.
That's awesome.
Now, you got another question for him there? I've got a few more, but
well, if I can, I just like to learn more about the student athlete part of it, right? Because you want to balance, the school part as well as the hockey.
Sure.
So how do you handle that? I mean, do you have like grade requirements or anything like that?
Yeah, I mean, we're a school first. I always use the term like, we're a school that happens to have a great hockey program, not the other way around. We're not a hockey program that happens to have a school. And so the good thing here at St. Andrews, I mean, we're aligned, whether it's from the head of school right down to our, teachers who are dealing with the boys on a daily basis. And so, everything that we do is, the boy is at the center of it, whether it's, their living situation in our boarding environment, or our health center, or, the academic program, or the extracurricular program. So everything revolves around giving these students an amazing experience. So, it all kind of seamlessly goes together. We've had a lot of practice. I mean, the school's 125 years old. And so schools like us, there's a lot of, great places like us that, are doing similar things. But I think we're all very aligned, and we're able to have the boys, and that's one of the things is like, you can still be a great student here and not sacrifice any of the hockey part of it. I mean, we spend just as much time as a junior A or a major junior team in terms of what we do on the hockey side of things, but you're also in a really great academic environment, and you're getting community service opportunities, and you're living with kids from all over the world, and you're being supported on all these different levels. So I think the environment that we have here is able to support these boys, and that way we're able to kind of, get the best out of them. They're able to get the best out of themselves. So it really just works together. Like, we don't miss much class because, we control the hockey schedule, and the hockey schedule and the class schedule all kind of meshes together. And obviously there's an accountability. Like, if boys aren't holding up their end as academic students, again, that a lot of that gets known on the way in. Like, you have to be able to succeed here academically, or otherwise it's probably not the best place for you as a hockey player or as a student athlete. But if they're not upholding their end of the bargain when it comes to as a student, then they don't come to practice. And if they don't practice, they don't play. And so those issues are just really non-existent for us, because, the school environment kind of just brings out that behavior in the boys, and they tend to do as well as they should in the classroom and better. Like, they're not all going to be 95% students, but we want them working to their capabilities and pushing a little bit more to prepare themselves to be great students when they get to college in the U.S.
That's it.
Do
you have a course called hockey, or?
Well, our team is actually a phys ed class, so that's so that's funny you say that, but that's been one of the other things for us too, is that allows us some extra time and flexibility, that these boys are getting a phys ed credit for their hockey activities, and it gives us 5-6 extra hours a week that we can use outside of just the sport time, because traditionally the sport time here at school is 3:30 to 6:30, in that range, where all the other teams, because we have 76 other teams at the school in 27 other sports, and so it's a big athletic program. It's one of the core pillars of the school, that we want these boys participating and doing other things. Like, all my players play a spring sport. Many play lacrosse. We got rugby players. We got track guys. So they're all playing a second sport after the hockey season, which is something that's a non-negotiable for me as a coach. They have to be doing that.
Good.
We want them doing other things. So it's important, and that part of a lot of it is community building. It's building athleticism. It's learning how to interact with different teammates. Like,
nice.
So I think those things are really important to us as a school as well. And the boys get a lot of pride. Like Jonathan Castagna, we mentioned. I mean, that he's a Division I lacrosse player if he's not a Division I hockey player. And Salmo Rego, who was on my team last year, that's a Division I lacrosse player if he's not, an aspiring Division I hockey player. So we've been very fortunate over here. Morgan Barron, little known fact, who plays for the Jets. He was the soccer MVP in his grade 12 years.
Oh, there you go.
Scored 22 goals with his left foot. So, I think it's important to test these guys and get them outside their comfort zone. And I think the big thing is sometimes they're told by the hockey world that they just have to define themselves as hockey players. And that's something we turn against completely. We don't want them just defining themselves as that, because they got a long life to live, and they've got to be able to define themselves as people, as students, as business owners, as hockey players. And so I think, having as many people in the school community be able to kind of help with that is invaluable.
Excellent. Well, Gretzky would approve that you you do multi-sports, He always said that, and I agree with it. Like, don't just play hockey, and it helps your motor skills, and like it improves your athleticism.
Definitely.
Okay, we don't want to keep you much longer there. You got to get going, but quickly, there's a couple more kids that are on the radar for being picked. Scout was asking me to ask you if Connor Arsenault was going to play this weekend.
He's back in the lineup. Yep, he'll be back in. And
okay.
I mean, last weekend we're playing Shattuck. If that's a championship game, he's playing. But it's early December, and we got a lot of months ahead of us. So we don't want his injury to be lingering. But he's back, ready to go. We're practicing today, and excited for him to get back in the lineup.
And what's just describe maybe where I'm thinking that teams are looking at him as maybe a later round pick potentially at this point. But
I would assume so. I always use the terminology for Connor, like he's got a really high floor, and then we're still figuring out where his ceiling's at. Like what he does translates to every team, every level. It's an invaluable mix of heaviness, attention to detail, leadership, physicality. He can finish pucks when he gets opportunities. So he's still rounding out his offensive game. You kind of wonder where that's going to go. And that's still, he got off to a really hot start and kind of was a little snake bitten for a little bit. So hopefully he finds that touch around the net again. But he's a player that I think, he'll fit. If he ends up at Cornell next year or the junior team, whoever he plays with, he's going to fit into their middle six right away. If he's fortunate enough to be a professional when the time comes, he's going to be a guy who's just seamlessly going to hit the ground running because he just has such good detail to his game, and he'll fit in wherever he plays. And then you just wonder where's the ceiling at? How far can he get to? And he's still young and he's still figuring that out.
Quickly on Dean, when I'm thinking of it, is he going to Boston College? Is it?
He's a Boston College commit, yeah.
Would he be going there next year, do you think?
It's probably more likely that he ends up in Sioux Falls in the in the USHL.
Okay.
That's probably more likely just in terms of their situation and the timeline. So things may change, and the team that selects him may want to see that sped up. But at this stage, it looks like he'll be in the USHL.
And then quickly there, you got Jack Good, who's tearing it up as well. Little water bug.
Yeah, Jack is, he led the OMHA U16 in scoring 2 years ago for the Markham Waxers. He's got a nose for being in the right place at the right time. He makes the players he plays with better. As he's adjusted to this, playing with older, bigger guys, he's not the biggest, but he plays in traffic. The puck just kind of follows him. He makes plays. He makes, Dean, he does a lot of dirty work and things for Dean and his line mates that, make things go, and as does Tyler Chiovetti, who plays with those guys. But Jack's one of those players that I think just kind of gets the job done. And if you can get past the fact that he's smallish, he's scored at every level he's played at. And I think, he and Dean are neck and neck up. I think they both got 63 points so far in 28 games. And they'll both end up probably well over 100. And that's, pretty impressive for us at this level. And he just makes things happen. Like I said, he the puck follows him. He's got a real nose for it. And those players don't come around all the time.
No.
And he's okay in traffic. He's okay with a defender on him. He's scrappy enough to play in the corners and along the boards. And he's a Merrimack commit. And I think they got a real good one in him once he'll make a decision on junior. And there'll be some adjustment there too, because now he's going to play with some bigger guys and some older guys again. But I have a hard time thinking that, whether he plays junior for a year or two and then in the college, that he's not going to be a great player at that level. So for me, that's one of those ones a team will probably have to fall in love with him as a player and just put the pause button on him for 5 or 6 years. And you got a kid who's going to be, like a Braden Point type of player, just kind of scrappy and skilled at the same time. And I think that's where Jack will get to once and again, another kid, he works really hard in the weight room to be strong. He started last year, as a smaller kid and worked really hard to be physically. You don't see him get pushed around too much out there now, so which is nice to see.
Well, maybe that St. Andrews sprout will happen there yet with him too, and he sprouts up a little bit too.
For sure. You never know.
Well, listen, I know you have some kids for next year too that we're just not going to have time to talk about, but we'll have to have you on again next year.
That's it.
Yeah, I'll book it. I'll put it on the calendar now. Like I said, we're really happy with where things are at, and I really appreciate you guys taking the time to recognize the kids. I think at the end, it's really nice to have people who are watching recognize that these guys have put a lot of time in and work in, and continue to make us look good. So I thank you guys for taking the time to chat with me.
Thank you, David.
Yes, sir. Thank you, David. Have a good one.
All the best. Thanks.
Take care. All right, David Manning, head coach of St. Andrews College. Thank you for taking the time. We wish them all the best for the rest of the season. Obviously, we're going to keep talking about certain of those players, especially Dean, who has been mentioned on the show previously. So shout out to him. He's having a heck of a season. Grant, this week was the governor's meeting in Seattle, and we got some news from good old Gary, who confirmed that this year's draft will be held June 28th and 29th at the Las Vegas Sphere, which I thought was pretty interesting. It's the first sporting event at that venue, so I think that's pretty cool. However, he did say that this would be the last centralized draft. So the rumor that we'd been talking about previously has been confirmed. It's going decentralized. It's following the NBA and NFL kind of mold. So how do we feel about that, Grant?
Yeah, and real shocked that the last one's at Vegas, eh? Like, Vegas doesn't get anything. Bettman doesn't like Vegas, does he? Yeah.
I'm not sure.
Well, we had that discussion about the whole Vegas thing before, so we'll keep it short and sweet. It's unfortunate that they have to copy the other leagues, because I don't think it wasn't broke, so they didn't need to fix it, I don't think. But
that's it.
The old saying goes that grates me a bit, but it is what it is, as they say. So, I mean, after you told me about the Sphere, I actually even saw a couple of things. Yeah, it looks kind of cool. You're right. I don't know. I guess it'll be an attraction, you know.
Mm-hmm.
U2 played there, I guess. I heard,
That's it.
read
Yeah.
somewhere. So it'll be the first sports team, as you say, doing something, and no surprise that it's the Bettman League, because he's in bed with Vegas. That's his baby. So yeah, it's kind of fitting that the last draft will be at Vegas, just because Bettman seems to love Vegas. So yeah, good for him. I'm glad he's happy.
That's it. Yeah, no, it's going to be interesting to see, next year and on how the decentralized format works. Are they going to
Yeah.
have a central location where every draft is held? Could it be the Sphere that every draft is held there? We'll know by next year.
I
But
have no doubt that that's what it'll be in Vegas for sure.
yeah.
I'd be shocked if it was anywhere else, because that's the NHL. Vegas is, Buffalo's the other one. Seems like Buffalo gets everything.
Combine,
Like the combines are now. I don't know. They had World Juniors, a couple of them. It's either Buffalo or Vegas. It seems like gets everything. So I don't know. Pagula and the owner of Vegas, I guess, have a bit of influence there with Gary. I don't know if it's this or what have you, but I'd expect it'll be Buffalo or Vegas every year.
It's always a question of money anyways, right? That's why it's become decentralized, is because teams didn't want to pay a ton of
they only made $6 billion.
I don't even remember how much. Yeah.
Gary announced the other day they only made $6 billion. So, that extra $250,000 that it would cost to not have it decentralized. Yeah. I mean, poor guys. Imagine only making $5.75 billion instead of, oh no, it's even frigging. No, that would be 5.9 something billion instead of 6 billion. Mm-hmm. If they didn't decentralize it. I mean, could you get by on $250,000 less than 6 billion? Split 30 ways. That would be tough. That would be tough. So yeah. Move on.
Anyways, that's it. It's unfortunate news
of the week.
That's it. Unfortunate news, but worth mentioning, right? We are a draft show, and this is draft-related news. But in more positive news, right, we want to touch on Habs prospect of the week. This week belongs to Cédric Gaumond. Let's look at what he did.
Okay. Yeah, it could have been Rhett Pitlick. Mm-hmm. I did a video and a report on recruits that you can see. So I figured I'd give the nod to Ced, because he hasn't, he's in the top 30 in OHL scoring and had a really good campaign. Scored a bunch of goals last week. I think he had 5 or 6 in 5 games. We're going back 5 games with this, so it's a little more than a week. It's prospect of the 10 days type thing. So Cedric's, Owen Sound. He's pesky, really smart player. Just has a nose for finding the puck and a nose for the net, and scored some real nice goals, as you can see. That was a nice one. Yeah. And he's the knock on him in his draft year was maybe he had to get, because of his size, he had to get a little faster. And it looks like, as you can see in these highlights there, he's got some quickness to him. I like the play he made there. Yeah. That wasn't a goal. I just threw in a couple extra highlights because when looking at the video, you notice that he made some nice plays, but he's got some sniper ability to him. This one here just squeaked through, but it was a nice turnaround shot. Very very smart, intelligent player. Good work ethic. I think he'll be a nice addition to Laval when he graduates, and that I don't know like there could be a ton of kids that join Laval at the end of this season, like Meshar, Beck, Reinbacher might even, Engstrom, Kapanen. Like there's a bunch of guys that if Laval can somehow get back in the playoff race and be, in that hunt, if all of these guys join the team, Gandon might, he might find it hard to find a place at the end of this year because all of those guys are a little more touted at this point than he is. But certainly next year he'll compete for a spot in Laval and hopefully be able to crack the roster and become a good AHLer. That's the first step, and take it from there. I mean, Montreal's got a pile of forward talent that's coming, and he'll be in tough, obviously, to become an NHLer. But we're seeing progress in his game, and he's producing and looking good. Another good mid-round draft pick by the Canadiens.
That's it. No, he's been doing excellent. And yeah, speaking on Laval, I mean, it's not looking too hot. But like you mentioned, they might have some help coming along. Could be a part of that. So Habs prospect of the week, Cedric Guédon. Now, sleeper of the week, I think is just fitting that we go with St. Andrews College alum, and we spoke about him already, Francesco Del Elche. Let's look at some stuff.
Yeah, he's playing Penticton, BCHL.
Mm-hmm.
It's too bad that they're independent now. He would have been a great addition to the World Junior Challenge that's coming up next week, where they take Tier 2 juniors from Western Canada and Eastern Canada, make squads. But he is this is a fairly long video, so we'll chat here for a while about him. As you saw by that pass, he's got great puck movement abilities, but what makes him extra special is just his feet. He's just he's fun to watch with the puck. He makes like how many the guy got dizzy trying to stay on his tail there, and then he makes the old fake pass back. I mean, that would never work in Montreal. You always have to pass it back to the guy, right? On the power play. But look at that pass. It wasn't a goal, and I was like, okay, this kid has really good vision. He's got a great shot. There's some video, some clips at the end where we'll see his shot too. But look at this, like his lateral mobility is just elite. And I mean, we saw it at the camp in Montreal that he kind of blew me away. I thought he was second best prospect to Reinbacher at that camp. So there's all these drafted kids. You're saying, oh boy, he should have been drafted. And I spoke to a couple of scouts after, and they said the same thing, that just was a matter of, I mean, a left defenseman, right? Did Montreal really need another one? And it's probably the only reason why he wasn't picked by the Canadiens, because they really liked him, obviously, because they invited him to camp. But you see his shot there. So the offensive tools that he has, vision, great shot, and just an elite skater. So as look at that pass. As Dave Manning was saying, he improves the defensive end of things, and that's obviously what preclude, why he didn't get drafted last year was, I guess, concerns with his play away from the puck. But when he has the puck, he is dynamic, special talent. So he did the wraparound and then found the kid in the slot there. I mean, I could have had 25 minutes of video. Look at that shot. I could add 25 minutes of video on him because it's just exciting player. Into the middle, Ving didn't score, but the other guy got the rebound. He's I can't see him not getting drafted. He's top 10, as we were saying when Dave was on. He's top 10 in scoring as a 18-year-old rookie defenseman in the BCHL. That's a good league, that's kind of almost unheard of. So, not only does he have all that skill that we saw in those clips, but he's producing as well. So, I mean, you draft that kid, he goes off to UMass, where who went to UMass that we were talking about earlier? McCagg. Well, what better place for a kid that reminds me a bit of McCagg to go to play college hockey? So you draft him this year, and you got another 3 to 4 years. He'll be 23, and you make a decision on him. That'll be attractive to some teams, that you get that long a period, and that he's mature and he's ready for pro when his college career is up, or perhaps even by junior. If he plays like I think he will at college, I think he's going to be a really good college player. I wouldn't be surprised if by his junior season, NHL team that drafts him, I'm pretty sure he'll be drafted this year. We'll look at bringing him out at that point. So, he's the sleeper of the week. I mean, I knew I was probably going to add him to the draft list just based on what we saw at the development camp.
Oh yeah.
But now he's looking at the video. I mean, it was confirmed big time, and I moved him up actually into a good spot there in the third round. So, sleeper of the week.
Yeah. Well deserved. He definitely caught my eye at development camp as well. I had to double take on the papers. Like, who is this? Okay, remember this name. So here we are talking about him again. Sure enough, we're going to be talking about him some more again. All right, prospect of the week now, Andrew Basha from the Medicine Hat Tigers. We had his coach on recently, so only fitting that we talk about him.
And if I'd had better clips for Letourneau, he would have been the prospect of the week. So it would have been just a complete St. Andrews College episode, right?
That's it.
But Basha had a 4-goal game, so got to give him the nod. 6 goals, 3 assists, I believe it was, in 5 games, or 4 games. So that's not bad. But it helps when you got that 4-goal game. That was a nice pass to Lindstrom, right there.
Yeah,
our boy Lindstrom, 3rd overall. I mean, he benefits from playing with Lindstrom, but Lindstrom benefits from playing with him too, to a certain degree. Yeah. There was a nice tip in goal. You're not going to see a lot of he's not going to do jaw-dropping skill stuff. He's not the biggest, fastest, fanciest stick handler. You'll see him like here. He just goes to the right spots.
Yeah.
He's very smart, intelligent player, reads the play well, good skater too. Like, he's quick. So, but his physical skill doesn't jump out at you because he's 6 foot or whatever, and not a super dangler or fantastic shot or any of those things. But I mean, I think he's top 10 in scoring in the WHL in his draft year. He just keeps scoring, and in large part due to his hockey sense. He's got very good hockey sense. Work ethic's decent. He's quick. So there's things to like about him. I think NHL teams probably have him somewhere, maybe late first, anywhere between 25 and 50. It's probably where he is on most lists at this point. Now, if he keeps producing and he ends up top 10 in WHL scoring by the end of the year, maybe he ends up being a first round pick. But a good prospect that we're giving him his due for having that 4-goal game.
Have to.
Not many draft eligible prospects have 4-goal games in junior and in their draft years. So good for him. And, he deserves it. And I hope he keeps it up and that teams look at him. I don't suppose Medicine Hat, I think they're probably going to go on a good playoff run. So don't expect to see him and Lidstrom at the U18. So make hay while the sun shines and put up good points and have a good playoff. And you never know, he might end up being a first round pick.
There you go. So Andrew Basha, prospect of the week, and that'll about wrap it up for this week. Folks, World Juniors quickly approaching, right? So This is the place to be. We're going to be covering it. We're going to be talking about it. You don't want to miss it. As always, I invite you all to go check out recruits.ca. There's stuff for everybody, right? Habs stuff, draft stuff, and all in between. So definitely do yourself a favor. Go check that out and subscribe to the channel. I mean, if you're watching, it won't cost you anything, right? Just click that button. It supports us. It helps us. It's always nice. Leave us a nice little comment too. If you want us to talk about a certain topic, we look at the comments. We might just take you up on that. Grant, any final remarks as we depart?
Yeah, you're asking me for final remarks now. Eh? We're getting you trained there. That's good. That's good. Cut me off there a couple of weeks ago. So yeah, no, I appreciate you. I appreciate you asking me that. And you know what? No, you said it perfectly. And I think we should just end on that note. Great work as always there, producer Shayne.
Well, appreciate that. And thank you to David Manning as well for taking the time to chat with us. That was awesome. We learned a lot of interesting things about St. Andrews and one of our favorite prospects, Dean Letourneau. So thank you all for tuning in, and we will see you next week.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast, Recruits Draftcast on YouTube, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts.